Hello, we're reading from the autobiography of an ex-colored man, and we're dealing with mixed race people, and particularly passing. If you're not from the United States, passing is when a black person is light enough to pass for a white person. Um, Sometimes white people pass for black people, but it's only when there's something, it has to be something at stake, like to run a black organization or to get some kind of program that was set aside for black people, they'll do it. But usually it's the other way around. Let's see. Back from the house, a vegetable garden ran perhaps 75 or 100 feet, but to my childish fancy, it was an endless territory. I can still recall the thrill of joy, excitement, and wonder it gave me to go on and explore expedition through it, to find the blackberries, both ripe and green, that grew along the edge of the fence. I remember with what pleasure I used to arrive at and stand before a little enclosure in which stood a patient cow chewing her cud. How I would occasionally offer her through the bars a piece of my bread and molasses, and how I would jerk back my hand in half fright if she made any motion to accept my offer. I have a dim recollection of several people who moved in and out about this little house, but I have a distinct mental image of only two: one, my mother, and the other, a tall man with a small dark mustache. I remember that his shoes and boots were always shiny, and that he wore a gold chain with a great gold watch with which he was always willing to let me play. My admiration was almost equally divided between the watch and the chain and the shoes. He used to come to the house evenings, perhaps 2 or 3 times a week, and it became my appointed duty whenever he came to bring him a pair of slippers and to put the shiny shoes in a particular corner. He often gave me in return for this service a bright coin, which my mother taught me to promptly drop in a little tin bank. I remember distinctly the last time this tall man came to the little house in Georgia. That evening before I went to bed, he took me up in his arms and squeezed me very tightly. My mother stood behind his chair, wiping tears from her eyes. I remember how I sat upon his knee and watched him laboriously drill a hole through a $10 gold piece, and then tie the coin around my neck with a string. I have worn that gold piece around my neck the greater part of my life and still possess it. But more than once I have wished that some other way had been found of attaching it to me besides putting a hole through it. On the day after the coin was put around my neck, my mother and I started on what seemed to me an endless journey. I knelt on the seat and watched through the train window the corn and cotton fields pass swiftly by until I fell asleep. When I fully awoke, we were being driven through the streets of a large city, Savannah. I sat up and blinked at the bright lights. At Savannah, we boarded a steamer which finally landed us in New York. From New York, we went to a town in Connecticut which became the home of my boyhood. My mother and I lived together in a little cottage which seemed to me to be fitted up almost luxuriously. There were horsehair covered chairs in the parlor and the little square piano. There was a stairway with red carpet on it leading to a half-second story. There were pictures on the walls and a few books in the glass-doored case. My mother dressed me very neatly, and I developed the pride which well-dressed boys generally have. She was careful about my associates, and I myself was quite particular. As I look back now, I can see that I was a perfect little aristocrat. My mother rarely went to anyone's house, but she did sewing, and there were a great many ladies coming to our cottage. If I was round, they would generally call me and ask me my name and age and tell my mother what a pretty boy I was. Some of them would put me on the head, or pat me on the head, excuse me, and kiss me. So there you have, he has a white father, and something went wrong that the black mother had to leave. And I'm sure the white father probably had a white wife, a white family. If not, it was against the law for him to be there, or at least married to a colored woman. I guess you could always sleep with them. So, um, this is what it was like, and this is what I guess you could say was mixed race in 1866. So, or in the 1870s. This is what you would consider mixed race and how you lived. Until next time, I want to say I appreciate your support and to take care of your mind and your body and stay safe.